Hi, this is the Mike Gormley Show, and I have a great guest in Randy Bachman to tell us some stories about his how many years career would you? I mean, going back to when you were 15?
Yeah, a couple of years, couple of decades. I'm at the vintage of Paul McCartney and Mick Jagger. I've hit
You're-
I've hit the big 8-0,
Wow,
and I'm still rocking and rolling, and I'll be in a neighborhood near you very soon, playing all BTO and Guess Who hits.
you do not look 80. I must say, at least on this screen, you you look much younger.
Thank you. I feel much younger. I think rock and roll keeps you young. Look at Paul McCartney. I mean, guy looks great.
Look at all those guys in their 80s that they're not just playing, they're running around the stage.
Yeah.
It's fantastic to see. And so we left you with You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. We came back in with a great song called Let It Ride. Um, there's a story behind You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet with the um,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, the story with Charlie Fash and so on.
Yeah.
Can you go into that a little bit?
Sure. I produced BTO, and even then we couldn't afford a cassette, so I just produced them in my head. We'd rehearse the song. I had a stopwatch. I'd write down the form of the song, verse, chorus, verse, intro, that kind of thing. And so we went into the studio. We'd always have a song. I'd always go in with 8 songs, so then you had vinyl. Classic rock's about 4 minutes a song, so you maybe get 20 minutes aside, 22 minutes aside. I always had a work song that would have a very light rhythm, so I could get a nice sound on rhythm guitar and bass and drums, and then a heavy chorus where you cranked it up and kicked in a pedal and you had a heavy chorus. So I'm there playing an instrumental, jangly rhythm, heavy chorus, jangly rhythm, heavy chorus. And to keep it going, I made up some lyrics. And I grew up with 3 brothers, and we all played pranks and tricks on each other and teased each other. And my brother next to me stuttered. And so, as a big prank, I said to myself, I'm going to stutter through this song. Don't even know what it's about. Just like he
And
talks.
it wasn't meant for the public at that point, right?
No, no, it was. I was going to mix one version, and I did. I mixed one version on cassette, and I was going to send it to him. We had cassettes in those days. And Charlie Fatch, who was the head of A&R, flew in, vice president, to hear the album. Now he's following BTO2, which is, I think, number 3 on the charts. BTO1 is still in the top 20 in Billboard. And he's following Let It Ride and Taking Care of Business. So he comes in to hear our 3rd album, Not Fragile. And he says to me, I like the album. Roll Under the Highway is great. Sledgehammer is great. I don't hear a single that's going to get you on Top 40 radio to follow up TCP and Let It Ride.
Which had been somewhat evasive. But the top 40 was the one area you hadn't really conquered yet.
Right. He said, you won't believe your box office and your fans once you get into Top 40 radio. And the engineer said, play him the throwaway track. And I said, forget it. And Charlie said, what, is there another track? I said, my guitar's not even in tune. I don't know what I'm singing. I'm stuttering. I'm doing a very bad Van Morrison in the ending, going sha la la la. I'm doing all kind of weird, stupid things. It's just a goofy track. And the engineer got it, and we played him with the cassette. We didn't even have a multi-track, just a cassette. And he played it for Charlie, and Charlie said, that's amazing. I've never heard anything like that on the radio. It seems to lift off the turntable, lift off, when you play it, the jangling rhythm guitars and stuff. And let's put it on the album. I said, it doesn't fit. We've got 8 songs. He said, I'll tell you what, let's take the 5 short songs, put them on one side, and we'll put the 4 longer ones. So you have like the 22 minutes aside. So when you flip the record, one side won't be louder than the other. You kind of got to balance the time. Mm-hmm. And he said, let's just squeeze it on the last side of the Not Fragile album. So I said, okay. I mean, he was the boss.
Yeah, right.
We put it on, and he calls me up 3 days later. He said, all the radio stations are playing this. We want to release it as a single. I said, you're crazy. It's going to be the end of the band. It's bad. The guitar's out of tune. Everything's bad. He said, it's a fun, rock and roll used to be fun. It was sha-na-na-na, yip, yip, boom, boom, get a job. It used to be all nonsensical fun stuff. This is fun. It's not a serious song. You're not Bob Dylan, okay? Let's go and do like a shot of nothing. So he released that as a single, and as you know, it went to #1 in 22 countries and sold millions of copies, and it was a #1 single. And at the same time, Not Fragile album became a #1 album. So it proved to me I didn't know much about the music business, and I knew about my musical side, but I didn't know how the business worked. Like, if the DJs like it, they play it, and then people buy it. That's your keyhole to the world.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. Um, it is an interesting track to get on the radio, and the stuttering aspect. People started relating you or the band to the Who just because of the stuttering they'd made use of.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes said you were trying to copy them, which obviously wasn't true. But it was because it was a different sort of thing, even though it was stuttering. You had to use it a different way entirely.
Yeah, and then they had Benny and the Jets.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And time in my hand by stick, ticking away. There are a lot of people that did that, but I did it. I overdid it because my brother used to answer the phone that way and talk that way.
Okay.
And here's what's amazing. About 15 years ago, I get in the mail a frame certificate from the American Stuttering or Speech Association, awarding that as the best stuttering song of all time. Because it wasn't making fun of my brother, it was paying tribute to him. And I thought, so I have this framed in my house. It's really cool.
That's very cool. Right up there with the gold and platinum records.
Yeah.
That's very cool. I want to find out. I mean, I know you haven't lived in Winnipeg for a long time, but so how did this town, the city, in northern Canada, Neil Young comes out of there. We talked about some of the people that came out of Winnipeg. Is it still an art town? A lot of people call it the Peg, and meaning the artistic side to it. Did you encounter that, or you just you don't even? I mean, it was just part of growing up.
Well, you're growing up there. You learn to play hockey. Obviously, it's a Canadian thing, but there's no indoor rinks. So as a kid, you're playing hockey and it's minus 20 below zero.
Yes, I remember.
Right? And the coach would phone you the night before the morning of the hockey game, which is on Saturday, and say, it snowed last night. Come early. We've got to shovel off the rink. We'd have to go with these big scoops and shovel off the rink and then play hockey. And they had an outdoor stove, a pot-bellied stove that was an iron stove, and sheets of cardboard. So you'd lay on the cardboard in the stove, put your blades of your skates on the stove, and they would heat up and heat your feet up. And then when you yelled, "I'm thawed out," he would change the line. You'd go in and skate. The other line who was on, who were frozen, would come and lay on the cardboard and put their skates on the. This is what we grew up doing. Stupidity, right?
Yeah.
And then you get to be 12 or 13 or 14 or 15, and you're playing little league baseball against each other in hockey. And then rock and roll starts, and you start a band. So rather than me going and playing hockey against Neil Young's team or little league baseball, I go and play their dance in Crescentwood. He comes with his band, Neil Young and the Squires, and plays West Kildonan, where I lived. All these little suburbs of like LA, you're going to, the Valley, you're going to different parts of LA, just like Winnipeg, all little burgs here and there. And so you start playing in each other's community centers and stuff like that. So out of that came Fred Turner. He was in a band called the Rockin' Devils. Burton Cummings was in the Devrons. Neil Young and the Squires. I was in Chad Allen and the Reflections, who became the Guess Who. When I left that, I joined with Fred Turner and started BTO. And there's this whole musical thing that, if you look at Canadian band, Colin James is our great rock and roll blues guitar player. He came through Winnipeg. Tom Cochran, Life is a Highway. He came through Shoal Lake, that came through Winnipeg. Monty Hall, who started Let's Make a Deal, came from Winnipeg. David Steinberg, the comedian, who basically was a part of the Jerry Seinfeld show, and now Larry David. He was 2 years ahead of me in high school. He was the clown in high school. It becomes a world-class comedian and then writes all the Seinfeld stuff with Jerry Seinfeld. So a lot of stuff came out of Winnipeg. That was Lorena McKinnon, the great harpist, and who sang kind of Celtic music. Winnipeg was an amazing place. And it's so cold there that I said it in the song called Prairie Town that me and Neil did. You stay inside and rock and roll. So you don't go out and play hockey anymore like an idiot when you're 14. You have a garage, or your parents let you go in your basement. There's nowhere else to go. It's 40 below. Yeah. There's snow everywhere. So you wake up on Saturday morning, you go downstairs, you plug in, and you you're playing to records. You would watch American Bandstand every Saturday morning at 11 o'clock and see who's on Bandstand, what records are they playing, and you would copy the records. And
Great.
so out of that came this incredible rock and roll that when you're woodshedding 6 months of the year, and then spring comes and you're playing outside and you're playing all the high school dances, and you can get around in a car. You got to borrow your dad's car, somebody with a car, because nobody had cars then. Out of it comes this incredible rock and roll of chasing the dream.
Mm-hmm.
And what's amazing is I'm still in touch with Burton Cummings, Neil Young, and Fred Turner. We all email each other back and forth, and we do a gig together, or one guy will show up and guest a couple of songs. It's amazing to know these guys since we were all 15 or 16 or 17 who've gone into the world. They call us the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse that rode out of Winnipeg, right? And we're still riding around the world.
That's
So
great.
it's really a cool club to be in.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We are going to, I think we're going to come back in with taking care of business. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I wanted to, I moved a page over here. We're going to, with American Woman, and there's a great story behind that. So I'd love to hear that story when we come back from this commercial. Stay tuned.